welcome to the next episode of me, to be astronomer, reacting, or physicist, let's see how that turns out, reacting to 27 questions for globe Earthers. We were stuck off by Flatside critically misunderstanding the difference between the pressure on the ISS and the pressure inside a can of carbonated beverage, in this case Sprite.
Guys, this is a tin can, look at it.
Yeah, it's not only a tin can, it's also at 3 times the pressure of the ISS, but we talked about that in the last episode. And of course it's going to explode. Come on.
Get these things from the outside and make
Stick a tire in a vacuum full and then give it a leak. See what happens.
See what I mean? They just. But didn't I answer it when I said?
Of rubber. It's
Come
not going
on.
to last one opening.
my brain's
Step here. Listen in here.
You say that, but
And
again, you provide astonishingly little to back up that claim, apart from you saying that.
Gifted a membership. I think you got it from.
Okay.
How can a trained astronaut not know the drills for when you've got a leak?
Exactly. Well, it's very simple because if they were really where they claim to be and there was a leak, they would be dead instantaneously.
Oh, really? Oh, that's interesting. Could you show me the calculations that you made to back this up, or do you have a source that says this? Would be I don't know. I would be highly interested in seeing that, because I would predict that nothing would happen for an astonishingly long amount of time, which is actually the only thing that can be backed up, because, you know.
There wouldn't be
Well,
time to do anything.
They would just
How do you reach this conclusion?
drown like they normally do.
Drown. Exactly. Yeah, I would go to the moon in a nanosecond, but we destroyed that technology, and it's a horrible process to build it back up again. And yet they had the process.
I mean, it is, because they don't have any money, because the US spends everything on defense against an enemy that doesn't really exist, but that's a completely different...
In power of a Nintendo.
Essentially, yes.
Jimmy
Less
says
than
it's been
Nintendo.
addressed.
Oh, sorry, bro.
The container requires a demonstration for, not pointing to the sky. Yep. Rebel, exactly. He plugged the eye.
Come on.
Hand in a. Is lost in his hand. It looks normal, guys. Use your hand. It will get sucked out, and it will actually. Come on.
It will
This
not
is
get
insane.
sucked out. Come on. How? Why would you think that? How do you reach the conclusion that it would be sucked out? This can only stem from such a fundamental misunderstanding of physics that I'm sometimes still surprised at how bad the education level in physics and natural science in general is in the realms of the flat earth. But then again, you would be flat earthers if it was otherwise. So it's kind of like the puddle argument, I guess.
Because the pressure from inside the cabin would force your thumb through the hole.
How would it do that? You assume that first of all a thumb is a fluid, which it is very much not. At least my thumb hasn't had any fluid properties from like the last 24 years. So like, how would you reckon that happens? You know that solids have a structure to them that is not just very easily broken, right? I mean, apparently
And
you
it will
don't.
actually create a bigger hole, and therefore your hand will be forced through, create a bigger hole.
How would it create a big hole? That depends on the material that is around the hole. If that's steel, and you're saying that your hand can punch through steel, I'd love to see a demonstration of that.
And then your arm will
Actually, I don't, because I don't like to see people get hurt. So maybe don't, but maybe do. I don't know.
force through and create a bigger hole, and then your body will force through and create a bigger hole. And guess what? Instantaneously,
We're not in a cartoon. You know that, right?
everybody on board is dead.
Yeah.
Oh.
Derek says it reminded me of the Alien movie when an alien was sucked out of a tiny alien spacecraft. Yeah, it's Alien Resurrection. And I was thinking.
Can we move on to the next
Jimmy's
question,
so
please?
dumb. He says Jolly Man is
Come on.
almost zero me.
We have been fooling around for 4 minutes now.
Videos on YouTube with him.
My inside way around it gets a puncher. Okay,
Come on.
ready to go to the next
Yes, question 11. Come on, gimme.
question. Number 11. Why do to need fake ISS in space? Why do you need to fake?
Hmm.
There we go. Why do you need to fake ISS and space footage
I mean,
if
he
it is
forgot
claimed
two
to be
now,
real?
so.
I think that's quite straightforward.
But again, I'm not blaming him for that. I do things like that as well, so that's fine. So, why they need to fake ISS and space footage if it is claimed to be real? I'm unsure what he talks about.
Anybody know why you would need to?
And as usual, very lackluster explanation. If you mean things like Star Wars and Star Trek and sci-fi, which I'm not sure if you would count it fake space footage, because no one is actually saying that that's like real space footage. I guess, I mean, in typical flat Earth speak, I guess you could consider it fake thing. I'm not sure. If you're talking about that, that is just for the well, the purpose of entertainment, really. Possibly very light education, but you know, if you're talking about the footage that you see from the ISS and from space, well, you say it's fake, but I mean, apart from you saying it's fake, do you really have anything? And like seeing wires where they're like, it's again, flat earthers start with the conclusion, right? They conclude with it has to be fake. So they go through the videos, and if something looks just a bit off from what they'd expect to look like, they call it fake. And things like camera glitches, because the compression, compression artifacts exist in space as well. Or like, what have you, from when they call the pictures of satellites fake, because they have to be fake. It's if they weren't fake, I mean, so that's a very, very bad point, because it is not, you haven't shown how either of these is faked, actually. I don't know what's going on
That
now.
doesn't want to work. Anyway, what I wanted to do, guys, is I wanted to put a background behind me, to put the beach behind me and say, guys, I'm actually at the beach, and then just
Okay,
push my.
yes.
That's all. It's very simple, guys. If they're in the ISS and
Can
they're
we-
really in space,
Yes.
why do they need to fake footage?
They don't fake
You
footage.
wouldn't need to fake
You
anything if
you
you're really
think
there.
they do, but apart from
I mean, it's the same
very
with the 24-hour
empty
Arctic
accusations, you don't really have
Why
any.
are we getting fake footage all the time if it's claimed to be real?
Again, you say that they are
sent
fake,
me a
but
whole
I'd
video
ask you
that
to
shows-
provide any kind of evidence that they actually are fake, apart from pointing there and saying it's fake. Because that's not an argument for everyone. Anyone. I mean,
You guys ready for the next question?
yes.
Okay. What is gravity? My
And
favorite one. Number
beautiful
12.
question.
What is gravity?
Okay.
We don't know. Next
Uh,
question.
That depends. Wait, hang on there, Buster. Hang on. As a physicist and an astronomer in training, I believe I am somewhat qualified to answer this question, and I will actually take a bit more time to answer this question in a way that I am actually happy with, because it is not a trivial question to answer. Depending on who you ask, what gravity is, right? There are a couple of levels of explanations that you can give to, depending on who you talk to. And the explanation that we are given in school is, depending on who does the explaining, is either that it is an attractive force between anything that has mass, which is the good old Newton's gravitational law, right? With two A's, that's how you write it, absolutely. That one, the universal, that's between two massive bodies, and for 99% of people and applications, more than 99%, this is completely sufficient. Engineers use this one. They don't even use this one. Engineers even use, for the most part, I imagine some engineers would use different things here. For the most part, engineers would even use that we have a constant downward acceleration on the surface of the Earth of about 9.81, which you can absolutely round up to 10, because if you calculate with a higher gravitational constant, your structure is just going to be more robust. So why not as well do that, right? So depending on what you do and who it is that is asking the question, I would give 3 answers. The A is a constant downward acceleration, where down is towards the center of the Earth plate. A constant downward acceleration of 9.81 on average on the Earth. I'd honestly just say 10 because I'm an astronomer and we like rounding. But like so that's sufficient for most people and most applications, right? If you want to go in a bit more detail, I would bring up the law of universal gravitation, maybe talk a bit about Kepler's laws, which are nice consequences of gravitation. But those aren't the 2 things that Flat is interested in. I imagine that as a flat earther, he's interested in whether or not I call it a force, and whether or not I go with Einsteinian gravity or not, right? So, is it a force? It is not a force, but it manifests as a force. It causes something that we would describe as a force, with our classical mechanical description of a force being an acceleration acting on a mass, right? Because they cause an acceleration essentially, and so it manifests as a force. That's a it. For practical purposes, it is a force. If you want to be strict about it, it isn't a force, but you can very much work with it as a force, and it manifests as a force, so you might as well say it's a force, right? Now, the thing that's really going on, as has been found out by Albert Einstein, and as I know that you know, Flatzoid, because you have commented under my video where I showed a citation. What's really going on is, or as far as we know, our current understanding is that gravity, or like the phenomenon of gravity, is the change of the geometry, sometimes called bending, but I don't really like the word bending in that context. It's a change in the geometry of space-time. Now, space-time encapsulates the passage of time as well as the usual dimensions of space that we are acquainted with, right? So what it essentially says is heavy bodies, or like technically speaking, any body with mass, but for the most part, this effect is way too small to have any impact on anything. For example, I have, if you've been hearing this noise, I've been playing with my car keys because they are on my desk, and I always fumble around with something. I need to fidget with stuff. My car keys are very light. Technically, yes, they cause a tiny change in the geometry of space-time, but this is so small you might as well not do anything with it. It's barely existent, right? What gravity really tells us, like the important part, is that massive, or like very big masses, cause a change in the way that the geometry works for space and time, both at the same time, if you will. And this causes what is known to us as gravity. Just a change in geometry. For example, falling bodies, if they don't have any sort of other forces acting on them, they fall on what's called a geodesic towards a massive body. And this geodesic is the shortest connection between those 2 points. A geodesic on a flat surface is a line. A geodesic on a sphere is a great circle, sometimes even called a geodesic, because that's what it is. And you can generalize this phenomenon that if you have any kind of curved surface, or like in this case space-time, which is 4-dimensional, making calculations absurdly difficult. I'm saying that because I did general relativity and cosmology at university last term. I'm not particularly good at it because I'm not really a theorist. You know, I'm more of an experimental physicist, or like computer, somewhere in that realm, right? Somewhere in the midst of experimentation and computer, both simulations and data evaluation. That's where I am. I'm not someone who knows much about theory, right? Of course, very much more than flat earthers, and for that matter, very much more than pretty much anyone else, because hardly anyone learns about that, because it's a very niche application, really. So in comparison to normal people, of course, I know more about that, because that's literally what I'll be doing for a living for probably the rest of my life. So okay, so sorry for that tangent. So what happens is that the geometry of space-time changes in accordance with mass. A higher mass causes more of a change in the geometry. The farther you are away from that mass, let's say that there's only a single central mass, the further you are away, the less this change will become. Actually, if we only have a central mass, this is called the Schwarzschild metric, right? I wrote that, I butchered that name, even if though I speak the language that his name comes from, so that's a bit sad now. Yeah, the Schwarzschild metric, that's what I wanted to look at. The Schwarzschild metric, this is a part of Einstein's general relativity, and is usually the easier one to understand, and it applies with one central body that's heavier than all of the other bodies that you have, right? And even the Schwarzschild metric is, I mean, have a look. Even the Schwarzschild metric is very complex, and honestly, I didn't fully understand it. If you would be interested, this is the metric. The metric for a flat surface would be very different. It would be very, very short. So even that one is, and that's the easiest case you can have, is very complicated. So that's why you don't usually talk about general relativity in the context of gravity with people who don't actually need it to figure stuff out, right? But the thing I want to get to is I already know that flat earthers reject gravity. They don't necessarily reject the acceleration. They don't have a good reason for that. But like they don't have a good reason for what causes the acceleration. But that's a whole different subject. So the fact that I'm so fascinated by is how come that general relativity, or gravity in general, is so wrong, and yet we can make predictions with it. We can find oil reserves. PhD Tony has a couple of videos on his channel about that, I believe. We can make predictions about which planetary body is going to be, to such a precise time now, that essentially the only limiting factor on how exactly we can know that is how much time we give the computer to calculate it. How come that we can make predictions like gravitational waves? And I know that you're going to reject those because, oh, that just really don't really exist. But I mean, we have detected them at LIGO and other facilities. Like, I guess the question I'm asking is, this is one of the most robust scientific theories we have. And don't give me it's just a theory thing, because you know what the correct answer is to that statement. It's one of the best understood theories we have. And yes, it disagrees with quantum mechanics, but that's on scales that general relativity isn't important anyways. So, you know, it still works very good. It's like that there are a couple of the best scientific theories within science, within physics, are probably the Standard Model, general relativity, those are, I guess, the best two we have. So big, because they are so encompassing and so kind of they have withstood the trials of time to a remarkable degree, and I'm just so fascinated on how a flat earther thinks that simply with saying gravity isn't a force could debunk all of that. How silly do you think we are? you don't understand the amount of complexity and the amount of work that went and still goes into creating these models that we have.
Yeah, exactly. Neil deGrasse Tyson. He simply tells us. Let's go look it up quickly, just for these guys. He's magic.
What
Yes,
is
what does
I
he
have
say?
no idea. Okay, next question.
I mean, in principle, we don't, like, right? I mean, when you ask what is gravity, that's a bit of a that's not exactly a scientific question, right? The scientific question would be, how does gravity work? That we can describe very well. If you ask me what is gravity, well, the hypothesis currently is that it is caused by some fundamental particle, probably graviton. We know a couple of things. Well, we should the graviton align with the standard model? We know a couple of things about it, but other than that, the only honest answer is that, well, we don't really know, and that's fine. We for our purposes, of course, it would be interesting to know, but we can still describe gravity even if we don't know exactly what it is. You do know that, right? That we don't need to exactly know what it is in order to describe it.
Do that, man. It's like you can't know what's going to happen in the future or something.
No idea. Okay, next question.
Well, I like hearing this.
What is
I
gravity?
have no idea. Okay, next question.
Because it's an honest answer. We don't know, and there's absolutely no shame in saying that. You think it somehow disproves gravity, which is very fun, because if we don't know, you especially don't know. But you know, that's a whole another.
Yeah, I think that kind of explains it. So, Globus, what is gravity?
I believe I've done a good job of giving
You're going to go
my
against your
views
beloved
into
astrophysicist Neil deGrasse Tyson?
this. Also, I love how they make out Neil deGrasse Tyson to be some sort of saint within the scientific community. I've said this before, and I will say it again. He is not important. He's probably the most well-known astronomy communicator. But as a scientist itself, like from a research perspective, he's not important, like at all. And that's fine. If he wants to do science communication, sure, go nuts. But it's like and this is another point I love about flat earthers. They think they know everything, especially like they think, oh, Neil deGrasse Tyson is the best astrophysicist there is, and it's like, no, not even close. Like, just know I've never read a paper from Neil deGrasse Tyson because he didn't write any highly relevant papers about anything. So you know so when every time you say that, oh, Neil deGrasse Tyson is the most important astrophysicist, it just shows that you have fundamentally no clue about what you're talking. Which is unsurprising. You wouldn't be a flat earther if you had a clue.
And every person in history that says they don't know what it is?
It's the bending of space-time. What?
Yeah.
No. It's mass attracting mass. No. It's just a made-up word. Ah, jeez, I don't know what the heck it is.
Well, it keeps changing.
Yeah, what happened to it?
Of course it keeps changing, you buffoon. See, I know that this is a foreign concept to you, but science is correcting. You know, we can admit when we were wrong, and when Einstein came about with, even though there was quite a big amount of resistance, mostly caused by the fact that Einstein was a Jew and other things like that. But the scientific community has accepted that, okay, Newton is not the be-all and end-all in gravity. That's great. We can make corrections. You know, corrections is so important. Admitting when you were wrong is, I would argue, one of the most important qualities anyone can have. I'm not surprised that flat earthers don't. But
Hillary, anyway.
Yeah.
Gravity took hold of Hillary.
Yeah.
Hey, Lampy Gas, good to see you, mate. Thanks for coming.
I'll just
Okay.
I'll just
Next.
okay. This is where I ended, so I can continue next time. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you did enjoy this video. If you did, I would enjoy it if you left a like, and maybe can I even ask you to dare suggest subscribing. That would be extremely nice of you. Well, with that, thank you And until the next video, goodbye!